We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Yes, good afternoon and welcome to The Food Show. Here we are Sunday afternoon again, and that means it's time for an hour of all kinds of different food talk, conversation, some interviews. We got some giveaways for you today, too, as well, so please be ready. We'll ask you to call in. The number's 519-570-2545. That's 570-2545, and we're going to give away a couple things on the show today, so be ready at the phone. And if you choose, you can listen to us and watch us online at 570news.com. Go to the webcast button, and you can see what's happening here in the studio. And it's great to have you alongside. And Catherine, good to have you there in our control studio. Thanks for helping out, as usual, because I can't keep all those buttons straight over there.
No problem. It's always a good fun.
It's a busy show today. We have Chris Nuttall-Smith. He is a food writer and the new restaurant reviewer for the Globe and Mail. I don't know if you follow the things that happen in the Globe and Mail with regards to food, but of course it's one of Canada's preeminent newspapers and one that has a very robust food section. Joanne Cates has toiled at that task of being the restaurant reviewer for the last, get this now, 38 years. That's nearly 4 decades. Yeah, she's handing in her fork and knife and pen. I understand she's going to continue to do some work with the Globe. But Chris Nuttall-Smith, a very good writer and someone that I've followed in his writings with Toronto Life magazine and some other publications. I sort of had him pegged as one of the candidates for the job. It just seemed that there was a logical progression there. And certainly I think hearing about what's coming out of our bigger centers, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec City, that gives us a little bit of insight into the food scene across restaurants across the country in Canada. So we'll be talking to Chris a little bit about that and what his plans are really for moving into this new position. One, obviously, that is, I guess, something of a lightning rod, maybe too. A lot of people will be listening looking to see what he has to say about the restaurant scene in Toronto. So that'll be interesting. We also will be talking to Ted Reeder. Do you like to cook with beer or barbecue with beer, Catherine?
My father does.
Oh, okay. So you're along for the ride, are you?
Yeah, I'm totally in for that.
Okay. Well, Ted Reeder is a barbecue genius of sorts, and he's written a book called Beerlicious: The Art of Grillin' and Chillin'. And we're going to be speaking with Ted, and we'll also be giving people a chance to win that book as well. We'll give away a copy of his new book called Beerlicious: The Art of Grillin' and Chillin'. Now, it says Volume 1 on it, which indicates to me that there's more things about to happen. So we'll be talking to Ted Reeder. We're also going to be talking to Nick Benninger. Iron Chef Uptown 21 is in its 4th season this year, and Chef Benninger is the owner, operator, and all-around good guy there. And he has been running this event for 4 years now. And what he's been doing has been donating all of the cash proceeds that come from the admission and raffles and other events there, donating it to the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, which I think is just an excellent organization to be able to support. And it all ties in with food. And we're going to get a little bit of an update from Nick about what happened last week, how much money they raised, and what's ahead for the last few weeks. Have you been to the Uptown 21 Iron Chef competitions yet?
No, I haven't had a chance, no.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you about another restaurant, and that is, we'll do a quick little dining out review here for the Bogda restaurant, very unusual little restaurant in North Waterloo. Now, it's a restaurant that is surprising, I think, in the kinds of cuisine that it offers. It is an example of cooking from the Uyghur people. These are people who live in different regions in the Xinjiang Autonomous Region of China. That's places like Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. They have their own specialized kind of cuisine there. It's kind of Chinese, and it's kind of Mongolian, and it's kind of interesting. And I really encourage people to go and give this place a try. It's up on Laurelwood Drive in Waterloo, and I was there last week. I've been there a couple times now. Now, in terms of the interior of the place, it's very stark. There's a few pictures on the wall. There's a very plain setting to the restaurant. If you can catch my drift there, they haven't wasted a lot of time and money on decorating the restaurant, but that's fine because you're there because of the food. And I would say that, well, I mean, It's Japanese kind of Asian cuisine, but it's got a lot of differences. This, as a traditional cuisine, they would eat camel and they would eat yogurt and they would eat certain flatbreads. I don't think there's any camel on the menu for this restaurant, but they have a lovely lamb broth that I thought was very, very good. It's not as strong as you might think. Sometimes lamb can be pretty muttony and gamey, but it wasn't. It was actually a little bit sweet. It was a little bit peppery, a little bit salty, and there were big chunks of lamb mutton in there on the bone, and it had lots of a rich flavor, and it had lots of chew to it. So I would say it was not exactly tender, but I don't think it was intended to be. I think it's a hearty stew, a hearty soup with a great broth. And what was really interesting here is that there is big chunks of carrots in it, and I really thought the flavors between the mutton or the lamb and the carrot actually paired up with each other quite nicely. So there's some nice seasoning there. And
it was complimentary.
It was complimentary. That's exactly the word I would
Sounds
use.
delicious.
Yes. You have crystallized my thoughts completely. There was also at the other end of the lamb scale, there were some little lamb kebabs that were very, very tender, and they were seasoned with a dry, mild spice, and they weren't too spicy hot, but they were very, very tender and juicy. So those are very, very good. Now, a sort of an interesting chicken dish that the Uyghurs cook is called dapanji, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, dapanji. It's a bone-in chicken. It's got a stew of Szechuan peppers, potatoes, green onion, garlic, lots of garlic, and some little cumin-y kind of flavors for spices. But the defining feature, I think, of this dish is what's called a lamian or lahmen noodle. It's a very thick, starts off life as a very thick wheat noodle, about the thickness of a rope, like you tie up a boat on a dock, about that thick. And I think it's one of these, they sort of spin it like a skipping rope, I believe, to sort of stretch it out. It's really quite interesting. I didn't see them do this, but this is just sort of, I'm surmising here. And I think what they do then is they rip it down its length into smaller, thinner threads, and that goes into your meal. And man, is it ever good. I really, really enjoyed it with all the other flavors. These thick, fat noodles just held the sauce nicely, and there was just a really good texture to it as well. So I encourage you, give that a try. Lahmen, I think it's pronounced. They're a wheat noodle and a very traditional cuisine for the Uyghur people. The banh mian is also the name of a Singaporean dish, I believe, but it was beef with these noodles, green onions, spinach, garlic, some Chinese cabbage, which they had cooked just perfectly, and a soy sauce kind of liquor, I guess. It's both salty and it has that nice, when you get a thing that's not meat and it tastes a lot like meat. I mean, maybe it's MSG. Hopefully it's not, but it's got that nice meaty texture in your mouth. This just was wonderful like that. I really, really enjoyed that. So try the banh mian as well. And
Was that spicy?
I wouldn't say it was really spicy, but it is spicy. I mean, this is their cuisine. They use chili peppers, and they did, I think, balance off, the kinds of different flavors: salt, spicy, hot.
I love spicy stuff.
Yeah, it's not too hot. You could probably ask them to make it spicier if you wanted. And they've done a good job of serving their native and their indigent. What's the word I'm trying to say here? The local cuisine, the cuisine that they live with in the sort of the roof of the world there in that very high part of Mongolia. But I got to warn you, there's like 15 things on the item, but on the menu, but there's only 5 things that are being served currently. So I think they're having a little trouble getting all of the dishes out all of the time. But I do encourage you to give it a visit. It's called Bogda Restaurant, Bogda Restaurant, and it's located at 645 Laurelwood Drive up in Waterloo. And if it gives you any frame of reference, it's right near Sir Johnny Macdonald's School. And the good thing is, if you go to that plaza and want to get into the Hogtails, the original Hogtails restaurants, but you can't because it's full, then you can just go 2 doors down to the Bogda Restaurant and try some Western Chinese Mongolian cuisine. Call them at 519-725-0885. That's Bogda Restaurant. And give it a try. It's a really unique. I think I like about it is we have so many different possibilities for eating in the region, and this is just another one that's just slightly unique. And the fact that they make these noodles here, I think, is really, really it's alluring to me anyway that they're making it in their own kitchen. And it's great to see. I wish them well, and I hope you'll go Give it a try, and I will just give you some information here that assessing food atmosphere, service and prices, dining out restaurant reviews, and tasting notes on the food show are based on anonymous and unannounced visits to the establishments, and restaurants do not pay for any portion of the reviewer's meal. That would be me, of course. So we're also going to give away, Catherine, some Piggy Labruski tickets. They're coming up on June 1st. There's a little barbecue and beer pairing at the popular Chainsaw location in Uptown Waterloo. So stay tuned for that. Again, we want you to have the number 570-2545. That's 519-570-2545 for all of the gifts that we will be giving away today. And you know what? I think we better take a break because we got to make a phone call here to get Chris Nuttall-Smith on the phone. He'll be the next interview, and we'll be talking to him. He's a new food writer and restaurant reviewer for the Globe and Mail. This is The Food Show. It's a break time. When we return, it's Chris Nuttall-Smith. This is 570 News.
This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. Back to The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And welcome back once again. This is Andrew Coppolino. This is The Food Show. I'm glad you could join us here. It's here where I am, high atop the McPherson building in downtown Kitchener, 11 floors up. It's a little overcast, but let's hope the clouds clear and we can have a nice sunny Sunday afternoon. Now, of course, Piggy Labruski coming up. That's great pork from Hogtails. Some wonderful breweries, Wellington, Black Oak, Mill Street, Stonehammer, Muskoka, Flying Monkeys, and Stratford. Tickets are coming up. We're going to give those away, so stay tuned for that. That's June 1st, but listen up, and you'll find out how you can win. And also I want to point out, too, that the great Food Link organization of Waterloo Region has now released their 12th map. I think it's the 10th year for them. Buy Local, Buy Fresh map is now out. It's your year-round guide to local food in 2012. So do look for it at various locations. We've got some here at the station. You'll find them at libraries and other public institutions. A lot of restaurants have them as well. Great organization that links you up with the best food that's local in the region. Now, if you've been a fan of Globe and Mail restaurant reviewer Joanne Cates over the last nearly 4 decades, then things have changed a bit in your world. Cates has resigned that lofty culinary post and passed the responsibilities to the well-known Toronto writer Chris Nuttall-Smith. Nuttall-Smith brings to the role a deep background and a knowledge and appreciation of food, but how will he approach this keenly sought-after job? Well, to find out, we've got Chris on the phone joining us from Toronto. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Andrew. I'm well, thanks.
I'm really glad that you could join us. It's an exciting time for you. Congratulations.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be on your show.
I guess do you feel these are some big shoes to fill, or are you a kind of guy that just sort of goes about your business without a care for worrying about sort of the past?
Oh, no, of course. I mean, Joanne has done this for so long. She really helped more than any other critic, I think, in the city to define Toronto cuisine for 4 decades of diners. No, she's, it's a big deal taking over the reins. That said, I've been doing this for a while. It's for En Route. I did their, across Canada's Best New Restaurants a few years ago. I was the chief critic and restaurant columnist at Toronto Life, and I was food editor before that. So I've done a lot of this, and so I'm confident it's going to work out well. And really, I'm spending most of my time eating these days, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so I'm excited to get at it.
I can appreciate that. I've been doing something similar. Is the breakdown for you the greater the interest in the cooking end of things or in the eating end of things, or is there a sort of a 50-50 split for you?
I think they dovetail nicely. They kind of feed into each other. It started for me with cooking. When I started getting interested in food, I couldn't afford to go out to good restaurants. This was a time as well. I was in Vancouver at the time, but it was the same in Toronto and the same many places where if you wanted to go out for a good meal, you had to spend a lot of money. And if you didn't want to spend a lot of money, you'd kind of get fries or, a chain restaurant or burgers. That has changed so much in the years since, where there's lots of great food available at kind of mid-range and even very low prices. But for me, it started with cooking. I would buy the cookbooks of great chefs or chefs I was interested in, and I would just start cooking out of them. And I loved it. And it was something I enjoyed doing. I loved feeding my friends. And so I started that way. I still cook a lot, but of course I go out to a lot of restaurants now as well. So, knowing how to cook and knowing how a chef might prepare a dish, or how a dish is typically prepared, or how how 5 different chefs and cookbooks would do it. It gives you a great perspective when you're a critic, and you really can understand what's appearing on your plate quite a bit better.
Yeah, I think that's a central concern for the people reading reviews, especially if you're on the restaurant side of things. And maybe we'll pick up on that a little bit, but I wanted to open up things to make it a bit more general. The restaurant review as a genre, I guess, as a cultural artifact. What is your take on what it is, what it should do, and how you think maybe it's changed or is about to change over the past little while?
Sure. Well, the central, but by no means exclusive, but the central function of a restaurant review is to tell people where to eat and whether it's good, what it costs, and what there might be. But of course, it's a lot more than that. There are loads of people who read reviews and enjoy them, but will never go to the restaurant that you're writing about. Part of what you need to do as a critic and as a reviewer is to assess the restaurant, but also to take people there so they can taste the food as they're reading your column. And also, I think more and more, restaurants are theater, restaurants are entertainment, and for a long, long time, and restaurant criticism is fairly new in North America, but for a long, long time, restaurant critics paid attention only to the food, and there was no sense of the theater, what was going inside of the restaurant. For me, writing about restaurants is a way of telling people not only about food, but also about their city and the world they live in. And there are restaurants. Just the crowd in a restaurant can tell you a lot. So for me, kind of that sociology, that anthropology of dining is also really important. And again, restaurant reviews, though, need more and more to be entertaining and interesting. They need to be great writing and great reading, and people have to want to read them, even if they're never going to go to the restaurants that you're writing about. So, all those functions are hugely important, and they make the job a lot of fun, too.
We have major writers in major newspapers in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City, sort of where there's a big meaty food culture, if you like, and these are critical touch points, perhaps, in the dining culture of a country. You're in a prominent position now, not that you weren't before, but I mean the Globe and Mail obviously holds a certain esteem. Absolutely. Do you feel, even though you may not be talking about restaurants in Waterloo region, can you speak to, or how will you speak to people that are, say, my listeners, or someone in Moncton, or somebody in Smiths Falls or something?
Sure. Well, now the first thing about this column, for a long time it ran in the national paper, and I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago they changed that. So my column will run in the Toronto section of the Globe Mail, so
right.
that appears in Toronto, and it appears in the region as well. Part of it, I read reviews from Los Angeles, I read critics from New York, I read critics from London. Chances are I'm not going to eat at 99.9% of the restaurants they're writing about, or maybe 98%. Let's put it at that. But it's reading a restaurant review, again, if the critic is good, you're learning about a city, you're learning about another place. It's travel writing almost to read it. Right. And you're learning about trends and ideas. One of the fascinating things about food these days is ideas travel so quickly internationally. And so, I can see something happening in Los Angeles or in London or in, New York. And, there are incredible things happening in Stratford and Kitchener-Waterloo and Guelph. And in your region, there are great producers. I think we are also interconnected and linked, that there's no such thing anymore as kind of the big city critic who writes for only one place or who only matters to one place. And I think that's one of the things that makes it really exciting.
Okay. Yeah.
And sorry, just one other thing to add to that. I'm also intending to get out of, downtown Toronto, which I think a lot of people see as the bread and butter for the Globe, but really the paper is so keen on getting out not only into the suburbs, into the areas around Toronto, but also into the region a little more. So that's something that we'll do and we'll focus on. There's great food all over the place, and part of my job is to get at that.
We're speaking with Chris Nuttall-Smith. He is the incoming, I guess, newly installed, like an appliance, newly installed food writer and restaurant critic for the Globe and Mail. If you give someone a camera and you have them take a pretty picture and they put a recipe on their blog, they sort of call themselves a food blogger or a food writer. What is your take on the blogosphere with Yelp and Restaurantica, Chowhound? Where do you see them fit in? Where do you see yourself fit in sort of contradistinction?
I mean, to speak about the phenomenon first, I think it's really valuable. I think it's great. I love the democracy that it's brought to food. Food is no longer the province of the rich and elitists only. Anybody can have an opinion. There are food writers, older food writers predominantly, who will sniff at that and say it's horrible and only professionals can do the job. I think that I enjoy reading Yelp. I don't turn to it very often. I don't find it very valuable to choose where to eat because you don't know what someone's motivation are, whether they paid for their meal and so on. But I think you can look at sites like that. You can look at Chowhound, which has become far less valuable in recent years. Once upon a time, Chowhound was really important and great. Mm-hmm. You can look at these sites, and you can get a sense of what people are saying. The distinction, though, with a critic who does the job to standards and takes it seriously and has integrity, and I think that is a dwindling number of critics, and there are a dwindling number of sources to find that. But when I go to a restaurant to review it, I do everything I can to ensure they don't know I'm coming. I never reserve under my own name. I never use a credit card with my name on it. My picture isn't anywhere on the internet. I try to go and represent any customer who might walk in, and I try to have as close to an experience as a regular person, as a non-critic as possible. I pay my own bills. I don't say, hey, I'm a critic, treat me well. I don't take free stuff. That's hugely important. So that's one thing I bring to it, which is the integrity that, I'm sorry, is absent on most blogs. Not all blogs, but most blogs. The other thing, though, is, I eat at hundreds of restaurants annually, and I think that what a professional critic does is brings knowledge and expertise and hopefully perspective and intelligence and all those other things to bear. So when you read a great critic, you can really, I think you can have confidence in what they're writing. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with them every time. Restaurant criticism is subjective. It is about likes and dislikes. And the other thing about restaurant criticism, unlike a movie, where if a critic goes and sees a movie, you're going to see the same movie they did. Restaurants change night to night. They're not living, breathing, but there are things that change. They have good nights, they have bad
There's
nights.
more variables, isn't there?
Absolutely. So people who read a critic and hear the restaurant's great may go and they'll say, I don't think it's that great. Or they'll go and they say, this is way better than the critic thought. That happens. But I think when you're reading a professional critic who works with integrity, who has some knowledge, you can put a lot more faith in spending $200 and hiring a babysitter and doing all those other things and going out. And that's why there still are professional newspaper critics.
So
who value what we do.
What will your first, when will your first column appear in the Globe?
Next Saturday.
Will it be a review or will it be an introduction?
It's going to be a review. It's a review of a restaurant that I'm not going to name yet,
okay,
but a restaurant that I really liked. And it's a restaurant, too, that says a lot, to my mind, about the evolving scene, not only in Toronto, but in the region, and even I'd go so far as to say in North America. So it's a lot of fun. And the thing that is most exciting to me, I went there for the third time the other night, and the room was almost empty. And they've been open for going on 2 months. And it is so exciting to find a place that people don't know about or haven't thought about, and to be able to tell people, you have to go here. It's great. The food's fantastic. It's interesting. They're great cooks. There's good value. You'll have a good time. That's what I love about the job.
We were just talking about a restaurant here in Waterloo. It's Uyghur, the Uyghur people from Western
cool.
Bengal. Yeah, it's nice. They're trying hard to
I think.
Uyghur. Yeah, it's an amazing sort of variation or riff or whatever on a Japanese kind of Chinese, Mongolian cuisine.
Well, there's lots of like grilled kebabs, cumin. It's northern Chinese, really fun cooking.
But those noodles, those long noodles, they almost stretch them out like they're a skipping rope. Right?
Noodles,
they're just beautiful. And I'm like I say, there's no one there, but I'm hoping they can hold on. And we try to give them a boost and give people at least an opportunity to go and visit.
Oh, I hope people go check that out. Uyghur noodles are fantastic, and they're a really big deal. But that's an example of a cuisine that I think a lot of people need to kind of have explained to them the first time, because it's odd. You can't pronounce the name of the the region where it's coming from because it's spelled weird. You don't know the food. You don't recognize the ingredients, and you need kind of a push to go and check it out. And that's something that I know you do on your show. That's something that I enjoy doing. And those kind of restaurants just add such incredible texture to a city, and they're just a lot of fun to eat at. And I bet it's really cheap too.
It is. It's nice, and it's a one-woman show, and she tells you a little bit about her background and where she came from. So it's a bit of a cultural experience more than just the food. Chris, we have to leave it there, but I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day to speak with us.
And a real pleasure.
And I want to wish you the best too for taking over, and I hope you have a lot of fun and eat a lot of great food.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That's Chris Nuttall-Smith. He is the newly installed restaurant reviewer for the Globe and Mail, and we'll look closely to see what he does as one of the top preeminent writers in the newspaper world for Ontario, certainly, and obviously when you check him online, everybody has access to what he talks about. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the great dining city of Toronto. Stay tuned. We do have to take a break. When we come back, it's Beerlicious. We'll be talking to Ted Reeder, Grillin' and Chillin' with Ted Reeder. This is Andrew Coppolino. You're listening to 570 News.
We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And here we are. Welcome back again to The Food Show. Okay, Chainsaw presents Piggy Labrewski Friday, June 1st. That's going to be great pork from Hogtails. That's going to be breweries Wellington, Black Oak, Mill Street, Stonehammer, Muskoka, Flying Monkeys, and Stratford. I've got 2 tickets here. Friday, June the 1st. Third caller in wins 2 tickets. Just make sure you stay on the line. Talk to our operator, Catherine, to get the information so you make sure you can come pick these tickets up. Now, future guests on the food show, we're going to have a round table. I think I'm going to try to do a butcher's round table. I'm going to try to get 3 or 4 butchers around the table here and get them talking a little bit about their craft. And that might be kind of interesting. We'll also be talking to someone from the Galt Country Club, and they're having a big fundraiser for a local charity. We'll talk to the people involved with that as well. And Janine Windsor will be here. She's from LEAF. That's an acronym, Leaders in Environmentally Accountable Food Service. She'll be calling in from Calgary, I believe. And we'll be learning a little bit about what restaurants can do to be environmentally green, I guess, and more sustainable in that regard. Now, Ted Reeder, our next guest, has been the only Canadian chef to appear on the Regis and Kelly show. Chef Reeder is an award-winning chef and food entertainer who's parlayed his passion for food into a culinary tour de force that includes more than a dozen cookbooks, shelves of food products, and lively culinary TV performances. They refer to him as the Crazy Canuck Barbecue Kingpin. The dude just loves to cook. And Ted Reeder joins me on the line. Hello, Ted, are you there?
Hey, how are you, Andrew?
I'm really well. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. It's been a crazy morning.
Has it been a crazy morning? Well, sometimes mornings happen like that, don't they?
Well, my little boy picked up, we were walking through the Home Depot, and he was walking beside a shelf, and there was an employee's blade open, and it splashed his hand wide open. So,
oh, my gosh.
It didn't do very well for this morning. But other than that, we're all coming together rather nicely.
I'm sorry about that, and I'm really glad that you were able to take the time away from your bleeding son to join us on the radio. That's dedication to the barbecue, isn't it?
Well, we got him fixed up, so he's fine now.
Okay, good. Well, congratulations on the new book, 2012, Beerlicious, The Art of Grillin' and Chillin', Volume 1. We want to give it away on the show, and we want to ask you just a little bit, sum it up for us. Tell us what's in this book, how it's put together, what people will find when they open it up.
Well, it really comes from my passion for barbecue, and my love of beer. And it stems back to when I was a little kid, and my grandparents, my grandfather, my father, really let me try beer. And it just grew from there, and learning how to grill over a wheelbarrow filled with charcoal with my dad, put the two things together. And it only took a lifetime or 40 years later plus. And it is 101 different recipes, 101 different beer that I have selected to go with each recipe. My professor of beer, a gentleman by the name of Roger Mittag, was kind enough to help me with all of the pairings and the combinations. And then we went, and I hit the grills and hit my smokers and started to create recipes. And it's a full color book. We're talking over 200 color photos, how to make your recipes include beer, whether it be in a marinade or in an injection or in a brine or just a drizzle or a baste or making the sauce for it. It's really all about that love of beer and the love of barbecue.
Okay, so we got two things we're dealing with here. Let's break them down individually, starting with the barbecue, because that's sort of the vehicle, I guess, for the beer. What are your principles for barbecuing? We are in barbecue season now. People are out en masse now in the backyards. You can see the smoke curling up from behind everyone's house, and you can smell aromas throughout neighborhoods. But what are your principles for good barbecuing?
Number one, a clean grill is a hotter grill and a healthier grill. So make sure if you've got a gas grill that you're cleaning that drip pan and scrubbing down those grill grates after you're done cooking, not leaving any particulates of food and burn bits on there because that promotes carcinogens, and carcinogens aren't healthy. So a clean grill is a healthy grill. 2, have some patience. Whatever you're going to cook, slow down. Remember it this way. The longer it takes to cook, the more beer you get. And number 3, have fun. Relax. Enjoy your friends. Enjoy your family. And make tasty, tasty food.
Okay, let's look at the component then that gives your book its, I guess, its definitive feature, the beer. When we eat, drink, work with wine in our cooking, we have a certain range of flavors that we're working with. Beer adds more flavors, perhaps, and also the carbonation aspect of it. So what are the principles for applying that beer? And I noticed you used the word injection at one point to the barbecue proteins, I guess, or food that you're grilling.
Yes, in simplistic terms, treat lagers like they were white wines and ales like they were red wine. How you would pair a red wine with a steak or with lamb or with a heavier meat, look at an ale doing the same thing. With lagers, chicken and poultry. Lighter beers go better with whiter meats. Heavier beer goes better with heavier meats, like a beef or a steak or ribs. Left brun with ribs is just absolutely fantastic. And then once you've chosen what your meat is or what you're going to grill, you've picked your beer, then you follow the recipe as what you're going to do with it. Some require that you marinate with the beer. Injecting with beer, you'll find that the higher the carbonation in the beer, the harder it is to suck it up into the injection syringe. So allowing that beer to lose a little bit of that bubbles makes it easier for injecting. And then it's really about the flavor that you create. Standard, same grilling procedures that you normally would do if it's going to be a steak or a burger or a chicken breast, but now you've enhanced it with the flavor of beer.
All of these recipes are your creation, and you've tested all of them. You must have had a lot of fun. I'm just looking at something called Abita Golden Planked Boudin Balls with tomatillo butter. There seems to be a lot of playfulness here. You're having some fun, aren't you? I always have fun. I think I have the greatest job in the world, and every day I get to go to my backyard and fire up one of my 65-plus grills and smokers and determine what I'm going to cook and how I'm going to cook it. And I never really make the same thing twice, but when I create recipes for books, it's all about getting out there and playing and definitely testing those recipes, having fun with the flavors. I want to give you, some of my recipes are really a little bit crazy and some are really big, but it's not about the big portions as much as the big flavor and sharing. You do a rack of ribs, you don't have to eat it all as one person. You can cut that up and share it with a number of your friends. And it's just about the big flavor. And beer and barbecue together on a hot summer's day, there's nothing better, because now you get to wet your whistle with the beer and enhance the flavor of the food that you're cooking. You're able to add a little bit of information about the variety of beers. I wouldn't be able to even estimate quickly here how many different kinds of beers there are in here, but we should note that you've got tasting notes that give people a little bit of background about these particular beers. How important is that to the way the book works?
It's quite important to understand, and I'm so glad that I had Roger Mittag, my professor of beer, really help me get through this, because I'm an average beer guy. I love to barbecue and grill, and I do love beer. But my knowledge of beer is greater now than when I started this book. My love for beer has grown and increased as well. But Roger was able to bring something to the table that I couldn't as a chef bring to the table. And that is really important to understanding what that beer is. Because if you can't find the beer I used, at least the pairing notes and the tasting notes are going to guide you to find another beer of the similar type. And then you can still make that recipe. If you are a standard beer drinker and you only like one brew, then you can make all the recipes with that beer. I'm not saying that you can't make my recipes if you don't have that beer. Any beer will really do, but if you want it to be perfect, you'll follow it exactly.
Now, we're just about out of time. What's on the horizon? Are we going to see you somewhere on TV? I have seen TV work that you've done. New projects coming up that you want to share with us?
We are actually in development on a television show named after my book called Beerlicious. And we're also writing a couple other projects. We've got Volume 2 of Beerlicious, looking at in a couple of years coming out with that. And I've just launched a smoking book called The Complete Idiot's Guide to Smoking Food. And there's my line of food products and grilling planks. And it's really, to me, it's about getting out on those grills and smokers, creating new recipes, looking at different methods and styles of cooking outdoors, and bringing that to my fan base and to everybody out there so that they can get in their backyard and make delicious food. It's not about the way Ted Reader makes it. It's about how you make it in your backyard. So in the end, when you're biting into that steak and you're taking a sip of that beer, you go, I did a great job, and this is absolutely delicious. I want to inspire you with beer and barbecue.
Perfect words to end on. Now, we're just about to give away this book. I'll send out a little trivia question here. At the beginning of the intro here, we mentioned that Ted was the only Canadian chef to ever appear on this American television show. If you can tell me the name of that show or the hosts of that show, you win the book. Let's take the second caller, 570-2545. That's 519-570-2545. The Canadian chef, Ted Reader, was the only guest chef, I guess, a Canadian chef on this particular American television show. Tell me what that is, and you win this great book, Beerlicious: The Art of Grillin' and Chillin' by Chef Ted Reader. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ted. I appreciate taking the time away from the injury, and I hope that those the healing process is full and complete.
Thank you very much, and I'm pretty sure it will. He's a tough little guy.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Have a super weekend, and on a day like today, you should be firing up those grills for a Sunday night supper.
Will do. Thanks, Ted.
All right. Bye-bye.
For more information, you can visit tedreader.com. That's READER, tedreader.com. Now, don't go away. There's a little bit more left yet on the food show, and right after these messages, we'll talk to Nick Benninger. You're listening to 570 News.
This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. With Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And there we go. Welcome back. This is the last segment. We do have to try to get Nick Benninger on the line. Catherine, I don't know if you've got him on the line yet. We're trying to work on getting Nick on the line. James from Cambridge was actually the winner of the Beerlicious book, the Ted Reader book, The Art of Grillin' and Chillin'. And we're going to try to get Nick on the line as soon as we can. Still have some Piggy Labruski tickets to give away. June 1st, starting at 5 p.m., the Chainsaw presents a great pork from Hogtails. They're renowned in the region, if not in most of southwestern Ontario, for some great barbecue and smoking. The breweries involved are Wellington, Black Oak, Mill Street, Stonehammer, Muskoka Flying Monkeys, and the Stratford Brewing Company, I think, which has some nice local beers mixed in with some ones that are sort of Toronto-based. So make sure you give us a call. We'll take the next caller. Let's go. Just call in and get 2 tickets for Chainsaw's Piggy Labruski. And do we have Nick yet there, Catherine? We're trying to get Nick. Can we get Nick Benninger on the phone? Catherine? She's trying now. This is interesting. I don't know if you saw in the Globe and Mail just this past Saturday, trying to get kids eating more healthily at schools, and they're sort of giving a report card to these kids as obesity skyrockets in children. A handful of schools around the world are adding a new grade to report cards, but the growing focus on measures such as a student's body mass index leaves something to be desired. And who should be responsible for ensuring that kids lead a healthy lifestyle? Is it the parents or the teachers' responsibility? I think it's a worthwhile discussion, and one that's kind of controversial. It's a difficult thing to do, to decide. Whose role is this? I think it's a sort of a combination. It's a team effort here. I think both teachers and parents are responsible for keeping their kids healthy, not exclusively teachers. So it's going to cause a few rough feathers to be ruffled, I do believe. So, Catherine, we have Nick on the phone? And we do. And Nick Benninger now joins me. Of course, Nick Benninger is the chef and owner, operator of the very popular Uptown 21 restaurant. Great restaurant that pumps out some great food and runs some really, really great events that are wine tastings, beer tastings. But they also do a little thing called the Iron Chef Uptown 21. And it's a competition between local restaurants, and it raises money for the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. And that's just great. And Nick is on the line to tell us, give us our weekly update on what's happened in the past week with Uptown 21. Hi, Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks a lot for having me. Thanks for the kind introduction.
What happened last week? We had a packed house, and you guys were just rocking with some pretty dynamic and exciting cooking.
Yeah, it was an awesome week. We had Scott Bailey from the Ancaster Old Mill down up against Paul Bima of Bima's in Waterloo, which is my favorite local restaurant. It was Battle Cheese from Guns Hill Cheese, someone I met on your show, actually. So
yeah, Shep, yeah. Cool. And it was a good fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good. It was probably the most entertaining one yet. It was pretty heavy ingredient for the Bima's crew. Indonesian food and Swiss cheeses don't always meet on the plate, but they did a good job and they stuck true to their food, which I really appreciated. Ancaster squeaked the win out, and we raised, I believe, $500 for the food bank. So we're up to $2,000 so far, which is the real winner. So.
That was a $500 night then. That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great night. So we have 3 of them left. This week's my favorite battle so far, my most anticipated battle. We have the tempered chef from Toronto up against the only on King in London. So
we got people coming from the east and people coming from the west. That's great.
Exactly, and converging in our city for a battle. So it'll be a good one.
How do people get involved, Nick, with this the general public?
They can phone in for tickets. We have lots of tickets available. So every Monday we release the tickets for the week, so they can phone the restaurant, or they can get us on Twitter. And it's $5, and all of that goes towards the food bank. So.
Yeah, we should point out that there's raffles that go on during the night as well, and all of that money gets right over to the food bank. And, of course, the amount of money that you raise is sort of, it increases almost automatically when you actually send it to the food bank because it sort of translates into more worth in food, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how it works, and I wish I knew that trick from my kitchen fund, but every dollar we raise raises $8 in food value. So it really, if you're coming and giving us $5 and you're even participating in a raffle for a judge's seat, your money's going a long, long way, and the value is there for you as the customer because it's a really fun time.
Nick, thanks a lot for joining us. I'll let you go, and we'll look forward to the next Iron Chef at Uptown 21. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.
That's Nick Benninger. He's the chef and co-owner of Uptown 21. For more information about that restaurant and the Food Bank of Waterloo Region and the Great Iron Chef event, visit uptown21.ca for more information. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of the show for this week. Thanks to Chris Nuttall-Smith, Ted Reeder, and Chef Nick Benninger. Thanks also to studio personnel here at 570 News, our internet producer, Jordan Carbone, and Catherine Drake, our studio operator. Visit 570news.com for an archive of past shows, and you can follow the Food Show at twitter.com, 570 Food Show, and read my column in the Kitchener Post each Friday. Join us again next week. We'll be talking to the Galt Country Club about their fundraising dinner and the folks from LEAF, Leaders in Environmentally accountable food service. Remember, eat wisely and eat well. And thank you for joining us here at the Food Show, only on 570 News.